The day then has finally arrived, and yet the Trump administration has still not landed exactly on their plan as the clock ticks down.
Tom, we all know what it's called. We just don't know what's in it, right? Liberation Day has been something that's been sort of looming on the surface. It's been looming there on the horizon for a great many sort of weeks and months. And for sort of business, for, policymakers here in Europe, for the markets, it's all, extremely ominous because it will contain something big. They just don't know what it is. And it seems that the Trump administration itself, at least as of a couple hours ago, is still deliberating about what these reciprocal tariffs actually look like. Is this just a sort of universal tariff, one block tariff that goes across sort of all the regions across the world? Is this a two-tiered system? Is this a country-by-country sort of deliberation about individual tariffs based on the trading relationship with the individual country, but also other sort of goals, economic goals that the United States might want to impose upon them? These are still sort of up in the air, and this is something that obviously is incredibly critical for all of the CEOs that I've spoken to over the last couple of months and weeks in order to try to determine what to do. But the only thing that is really quite certain, Tom, there's two things. One is that basically tomorrow, as of tomorrow morning, basically you will have the highest trade barriers between the United States and the rest of its trading partners, in probably over a century. And the only other thing, and this is potentially the silver lining here, Tom, is you will have at least clarity for the rest of the world in terms of what this will actually look like. And that will mean that policymakers, for anyone from here in the EU, for these businesses that have huge businesses operations in the United States, whether it's the automakers or others, they will start to be able to plan and they start to be able to respond to what the Trump administration is sort of packing in the pipeline. All I can say, Tom, is I would not want to be, the CEO or the CFO of a company right now preparing earnings season for the next quarter, because this is going to be something very, very interesting to talk to the executives about how they anticipate this is going to affect not only their own sales, but the macroeconomic environment. All of these inputs still to play for, and that sort of calculation will begin tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, is the uncertainty itself more damaging than the actual tariffs themselves? What could it mean then, Ollie? Chart for us what the impact could be on Europe and the potential retaliatory response.
Yeah, so Tom, let's look at this in sort of two different categories. There's obviously the policy response, and then there's a sort of impact on the actual companies themselves. I mean, we heard from Ursula von der Leyen. We've heard the sort of same line reiterated from the very beginning from policymakers here in Europe, saying that basically this is not a start that this is not the fight that we started. We would like a negotiated arrangement with the United States over the next couple of weeks. We really didn't even want to go into these tariffs, and that basically we'd like to resolve this very amicably. But if we cannot, we will retaliate. And the EU is really of all the sort of trading partners, kind of a position to do so, despite the fact that they still have a surplus with the United States. This is a $1 trillion trading relationship between Europe and the U.S. When you think about the companies, I mean, I spoke to this BMW CEO a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about just the tariffs between Canada and Mexico in the United States, because BMW makes some cars in Mexico. They said that would cost them €1 billion. We now have reporting overnight from Mercedes-Benz that they're looking to basically pull out their entry-level cars from the U.S. market because they are no longer economic potentially with these 25% tariffs. But Tom, the other sort of great overlay here, and I think we should say that the fact that basically tomorrow, when these tariffs come into place in Europe, over Europe, it is the day that Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State of the United States, arrives here for a NATO meeting. And when we think about what the tariffs are, it's obviously economic domestic policy for the United States, but it is also foreign policy at a time when Europe needs the United States and Ukraine, needs the United States for defense, and at a point in which those two sort of propositions are their most precarious ever, and the Trump administration is really betting that they're the only game in town. We'll see to what degree that is the case.